Hi there. It's August the 5th, and we're beginning a new book in the scriptures. This is another of historical books. In the Hebrew writings, it's part of the Ketuvim. That means the part of the scriptures. It's not part of the Torah or the Nevi'im, the prophets, but part of the Ketuvim. And this is Ezra. Ezra actually is the name of a scribe who figures in this book. And a scribe was one who copied the scriptures, who copied the law. And this is the scribe Ezra. As I say, his name means the helper. And it's a word that's used of God, that God is a present help in trouble. Ezra B'Tzura, a God who helps in trouble. And Ezra is one of those who's involved in bringing back people of Judah and Israel from their exile in Babylon. Now the circumstances are these, that in around 530, 540, somewhere around there, the Babylonian Empire, which has held the people of Judah captive, is overthrown by Cyrus, who is a Mede. It's the Persian Empire that's coming forward now. Now the Persian Empire's approach to the deportation of nations is very different to that of Babylonians. The Babylonians broke down people's power by removing them from their homelands into exile, whereas Cyrus's and the Medes and the Persians' idea is to actually allow people to return to the places where they came from, to settle, and then to take them into his empire, but in their home places. And so this is what we find happens in chapter 1. Cyrus makes a declaration that people should go back to their own nations, and at this point the people of Israel and Judah are permitted and encouraged even to go back to re-establish Jerusalem and Judah. Not everyone decides to go, because they've been living for nearly 70 years in Babylon, in exile, and actually through the prophet Jeremiah, in Jeremiah 29, they've been encouraged to actually settle and to marry and to stay and to pray for the prosperity of the place where they are. But here in Ezra, there's a return of a whole lot of people, of thousands and thousands of people who decide they want to go home to the old country and to rebuild their life there. And so chapter 1 describes how they go, and they're going not just with people, but also with many supplies and much silver, gold, metals, things which will be useful to pay for the rebuilding of Jerusalem and of the temple in particular. So in chapter 2 is a very long, complicated chapter, and in chapter 2 we find the names of all of those who went back from the exile and returned to rebuild Jerusalem, and very exhaustive lists of many names, along with Ezra and along with Zerubbabel, who becomes the king. He's in the line of the kings. And also we find there towards the end of this long chapter, we find that there are those of the Levites, first of all, who want to go back, who can be priests and who can re-establish the house of God and re-establish the worship of the Lord. But there are some of those who haven't been able to establish their pedigree. We remember from previous books, particularly Numbers, that it's very important for a Jew to be able to say where he's come from and what his genealogy is, because this proves that he's part of the people of God and part of the covenant people. But there are numbers of people who are not able to establish that, and it's said that they are held in abeyance. Particularly the Levites are not allowed to practice any kind of service of the Lord until what's called the Urim and Thummim are re-established. That is, the method of discerning the will of the Lord by lottery, which was practiced in those times. And so they are held in abeyance. But by the end of chapter 2, there are thousands of people who've returned back into Israel, and we're going to see the building up of Jerusalem. And actually in Ezra later on we'll see there is a gap, in fact, of some decades, because they start the building process but then it's stopped and they have to restart it. So there's something of a gap time-wise in the timeline of Ezra, but here at least they make a start and they go back. God promised In fact, it says at the beginning of Ezra 1 that it said that Jeremiah said that this would be a temporary exile. He said that after 70 years the people would return. And so God is being faithful to his word through Jeremiah the prophet. We can rely on the fact that even when difficult things happen, God will be faithful to his word and will see us through. God is a God who can be relied on. He is a God of Hesed. He is a God who is faithful to his promises and will never let us down. Have a very good August the 5th.